Look, it's the new Toyota bZ4X. Hold on. I know it's not the most exciting electric car in the world, but Toyota as a company is nothing if not good at listening, and they reckon they've improved this car beyond recognition. So I'm here to find out whether that's true. Now, full disclosure, back when this car was new, I used to run one with a big battery and all-wheel drive, and it did have a couple of little issues, mainly because in single-digit winter temperatures, that car would only do about 160 miles of range, which, let's face it, isn't that competitive. And that was because it had some of the most aggressive battery buffers known to human beings and the hungriest air conditioning in existence. So I'm actually really interested to see if this thing is any better.
This version is the most popular in the UK, the front-wheel drive car with a new battery, one with more cells stuffed into the same space, weighing in with 354 miles of WLTP range, which is a lot better. And yes, you can still get the more powerful all-wheel drive, now with 316 miles of range and 340-ish brake horsepower, but that is built to order. So we thought we'd take a deeper look at the one most people are likely to drive.
Now on the outside it's pretty much the same vibe, but with a few improvements. Here is the old one for reference, and this is the new. At the front it's been sort of tidied up a little. It's got Toyota's hammerhead front end design with these slimmer headlights, and this corner section has been changed to make it more efficient. Less drag apparently. It's changed from a CD of 0.29 to a CD of 0.27, which should give you more range. Down the sides it's got these black plastic arches, which are now gloss coloured instead of the kind of ABS plastic they used to be, which looks a little bit more classy, and then different wheel designs, and the side is pretty much the same, and the back's just had a few tweaks to the spoiler design. But now it's got a fully enclosed underbody and other little tweaks and tricks to make this car a little bit better at going further on a charge. But the outside is more of a bit of industry botox rather than reconstructive surgery. What's more interesting is what's been going on the inside, because this is definitely improved. Interesting things, it's still got the small steering wheel, which is supposed to look over to see the driver's display, which is actually seems to be in a better place than it was before. But now it's got this horizontal style dashboard with this bigger 14-inch touchscreen, which is a lot better than it used to be in the old car. It's got some physical controls for the aircon on the bottom, and all of this just seems a bit slicker. It's much more like the Toyota CHR Plus, which has the more modern interior, and that's a good thing. Also, you can actually switch off all the ADAS things with a couple of presses, so you hit car driving assist, and then you just pick from these tiles to switch off the things you don't need. It's quite useful. It's got a slimmer centre console with dual wireless charging. This is the gear selector, and then it's got a little bit of cup holders and this little box which you can actually open from both sides, which is actually quite useful. It feels like it's got a lot more quality and a lot more kind of fit and finish than the car that I used to drive, which is actually pretty good.
It feels more coherent than it used to and generally more practical. And it gets a panoramic roof on the top specs, very good space in the rear, and a slightly smaller than average boot at 452 litres. No frunk though. But generally, again, it feels more like the CHR Plus, and much better than before, nicely tidied up and improved.
It's still not got a glove box, but I never really missed it when I drove this car. I can lose biros anywhere I want to. The thing is, I just feel like this car has had a bit of a refresh, but it's been all of the things that there were problems in the old bZ4X have been looked at, dealt with, and made better. But one of the big bits of news is that it now has an air conditioning system which is 30% more efficient than the old one, which should go some way to address that problem of when you switch the car on and put the aircon on in the winter, you'd lose about a third of your range. This is a good thing.
One thing to note here, if you do need more space, there's a new bZ4X Touring on the way, which is actually a bit bigger with a squarer rear end and a slightly larger 74.7 kWh gross battery to keep the range acceptable. It's 140mm longer and 20mm higher, with a third more boot space, and looks quite different, especially from the rear end in profile, kind of like an estate bZ4X, and I think it looks pretty good. Let us know in the comments what you think of this one.
But the one place you really notice the improvements are in the driving. Massive first impression, it's the steering. Toyota has really improved the way that this car steers. It feels more direct, slightly heavier, and with a bit more tactility. So when you start driving, it just feels better. The ride is nicely balanced. It rides a lot better than it did before, and that's because they've changed the damping to make it a bit more mature, feel a bit more expensive, and it's quieter. It's got acoustic glass in the front windows now, so everything is just a little bit more upper class. It's still not a particularly fast car. This is the front wheel drive with the longer range battery. So it's only got 221 brake horsepower to play with. So 0 to 62 miles an hour in about 7.4 seconds. But that's plenty for normal driving. The one thing I would say though, is I don't know whether these Spanish roads are a little bit slippy, but this car has the most paranoid traction control system I think I've ever driven in a car. Even medium amounts of throttle have the little traction control light flashing like crazy. I don't actually think it's losing grip. It's just the electronics think it's going mad. Look, if I just go around this corner a bit quicker, it's already flashing. And then the thing is, the car's got plenty of handling balance. Even going around some of these corners, it still feels a little bit heavy. You're just slightly off-put by the fact the traction control thinks we're going to have a crash all the time. You've got 3 different levels of brake regeneration, which you can hit from the paddles behind the steering wheel. And when you're pottering around, it feels like a very mature, very sophisticated car. It feels a lot better than it was back in the day. One of the things you do notice about this car though, is it is a good chunk more efficient than it was before. I've only done about 60 miles and already it's doing 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which should give you proper late 200s kind of total range, which is an absolute game changer compared to the old bZ4X. I mean, when you're talking about a car that only did 160 miles, if you can do 260, 290, then that's more than competitive these days. That used to be the bZ4X's massive problem, apart from the fact it had a Scrabble score of a name. Now, some of that efficiency is down to the fact that Toyota has stuck its new e-axles in this car. So in the all-wheel drive version, it gets 2, one for the front, one for the back, and in the front-wheel drive car, obviously it's just got one in the front. They're smaller, more compact, more energy dense, and they just provide more power for less space. Now that's because they've got new silicon carbide semiconductors, which all sounds quite crazy, but it's just more efficient. So this car can provide greater range, more power for less space taken up. The battery is also now cooled and heated, and it's got proper preconditioning. So if you set it into the sat nav, the car will start preconditioning before it arrives at a rapid charger, and you can cut the charge time by half. That's a big deal if you're on a long journey.
And there's a better heat pump. That's Toyota listening to criticism and working the angles to make it better. Not one huge change, just like sticking a more massive battery into it, but improving the important stuff behind the scenes to make this a more practical electric car. And yes, I also had a go in the all-wheel drive version, which managed its traction much better. It feels much quicker at 5.4 seconds to 62 miles an hour, can tow 1500 kilograms, and has a full suite of off-road modes, which make the bZ4X much better off-road than you imagine. It's still not quite got enough ground clearance or aggressive enough tyres for mad off-roading, but it handles lightly rough stuff with ease. As far as charging goes, you get up to 150 kilowatts of DC charging, which should see 10 to 80% in 2 minutes under half an hour on the larger battery models, which is decent. As mentioned, the front-wheel drive long range gets 354 miles of WLTP range, and there's an all-wheel drive version available that gets 316, but also much more horsepower. At the bottom of the range is a 57.7 kWh version called the Icon that gets 274 miles of WLTP. Standard AC charging across the board is 11 kilowatts, with a 22 kilowatt option that's standard on the higher XL grade.
Do you know what? This car feels like a whole heap of changes. It feels like Toyota listening and working all the angles to making a better car. It's not one massive change like whacking in a huge battery. It's lots of little tweaks that have made this a much more mature, much more sort of rounded vehicle. It's a big change made up of lots of little ones. You know what? This isn't a hugely exciting car, but it's a really solid kind of rounded effort. I mean, when you're flying about, it's not a sports car, it always feels heavy. It's about 2,025 kilograms. But it's got good body control, it's got really good damping. You still feel the fact that it's quite heavy and front wheel drive, but because the steering's so much better, the whole car just feels more mature. And the ride, I can't get over the ride, it's so much better. In the old car, the back axle used to sort of bounce up and down a little bit. This one is much more like a luxury vehicle. Toyota's done a really good job here.
A front-wheel drive, long-range bZ4X like this one costs £45,795 in the UK without any kind of grant, and it comes pretty well equipped. And I actually think that's decent value. The small battery car comes in at just under 40k, and the all-wheel drive in the top XL trim a bit over 51. The only problem is the competition. Just off the top of my head, the Škoda Enyaq 85 beats the mid-range design trim on pretty much every metric. It's cheaper, faster, has more range, and is more energy efficient and nearly 20% faster at charging. Then there are things like the Ford Explorer, Kia EV6, Nissan Ariya, ID4, even a Model Y. They're all solid enough options these days, even if Toyota's big mile warranties are some of the best in the business.
So, what do we think about the new Toyota bZ4X? Well, I think it is a super solid set of upgrades from the company. This car is much improved over the one that it replaces. It's about 50 to 60% better. The only thing is, there is a lot of competition out there these days, and this lacks that tiny bit of extra sparkle that makes it stand out. So, it's a brilliant set of upgrades, but I still think it needs that extra little something.